We have started to record the most recent session of SPCH 1113, Introduction to Public Speaking, for the first summer session. It has been an eventful Wednesday, June 21st, 2023. This is my second take of the afternoon. I lost the internet at my home after about the first 10 to 12 minutes. Same thing happened yesterday when we were just about at the 1 hour mark. So hopefully I can get this in. The first thing that I wanted to do today, which I also did about a half hour ago before I lost my internet service, is to show you what happened at the end of yesterday's class session. Jocelyn Keller from spring 2020, I was showing her persuasive presentation on the importance of not procrastinating. Here's what happened. We'll go to the video of yesterday's class. After about 30 seconds, it just freezes. This is one of the challenges, of course, that we found during the pandemic with online instruction, but I am a media person. I believe in content, and I know that we all occasionally have issues with online courses. Your instructor is not immune. Here we go.
In your ability to do the task, you could jeopardize your position, and you could even prevent yourself from ever rising up the ladder again, making you miss opportunities. Peer relationships, we could be students, project partners, extracurricular groups. If you procrastinate the completion of your share of work and lead to the undue stress of all of your teammates, then not only will they be unduly stressed, but then you will too. And that may even ruin a friendship or acquaintanceship. And personal.
Then it freezes. I get the reconnect, as many of you have when you're with me live online. It stays this way, and then eventually, because I was the only person in the classroom at the time, that's what I saw. And then nothing. But I wanted to show that to you because it's really important to always double check every last minute of every last video, not only from the standpoint of trying to learn, but also occasionally things happen. The other part of yesterday's course that I wanted to reinforce is the relevance of the self-evaluation speech critique. This is what an individual showed me during the fall intersession of 2020, a representative sample of what you might produce next week of 2020. In December of that month, this is one of the self-evaluation speech critiques that I received. From the fall intersession of 2020, this is a self-evaluation speech critique from Carly. It is a realistic example, as I showed you with 3 of them yesterday, of what you're going to be writing. It doesn't have to be in a Word document. It can be something very similar to this. Professor Reppert, I feel that I have improved insurmountably in my speech-giving abilities throughout the course. My entire life, I have struggled with public speaking. Every time I even thought about having to speak in front of people, I would break out into hives and become very red around my neck. Throughout your course, I could feel my anxiety levels about speaking dwindling down because of the tools and assistance you provided me. I took pictures of the redness I had spoken about. The first one is from the informative speech, and the second is from the wild card. The redness totally disappeared because of how much more prepared I was for the speech. The change I have experienced throughout the 4 speeches has changed my life and my anxiety about giving speeches forever. If it wasn't for your class and instruction, I would still be afraid to speak in public, and for that, I thank you so very much. So that is from Carly. The fall intersession of 2020 was during the pandemic, during the month of December. It had exactly 19 sessions, exactly the same as what you're doing during the first summer session of 2023. The photos on the bottom are 2 weeks apart. This is from her informative speech. This is from her wild card. As you can see on the right-hand side, she has broken out a little bit. She's being very honest about the nervousness that was very prevalent before her first two speeches. Notice the difference on the right-hand side when we get to the wild card. Look very closely. The nervousness is gone. Informative, wild card. Informative, a little nervous with the breakout. Wild card 2 weeks later, not a problem. You don't necessarily have to be that open and honest with me to tell you how you were breaking out before a speech, but it's not unusual for all of us to be nervous before a presentation. And that was what a realistic example of a speech evaluation critique can look like. Before we get into our first day of persuasive speeches, let's go back to the student preview mode of Blackboard to remind you what's going to be coming up over the next week and a half. Always check the announcements area because that might be subject to change. But the recorded archives will always be available for you to access. The grades will be posted probably Sunday night. Don't fall behind. Class Collaborate Ultra, menu bar, and recordings. You see what's on top. I started originally at 119 with my take, which is deceptively long here because I actually stopped the recording once I was able to get back online. Remember, guys, this is my second take of the day because for the second consecutive class period, I lost my internet access at home. So I stopped the recording. I'll probably, at the end of the day, delete this, even though you could watch it right now, those magic 12 minutes. But for your benefit, the 1 minute and 3 seconds or the 1 hour and 3 minutes that was cut off from our first cutoff yesterday from online instruction. Everything here and everything here is going to be included, such as your demonstrative, informative, persuasive wildcard presentations with my analyses of them, breaking them down as we always do. And then, of course, at the instructor information area, always check out my website for different types of ideas for speeches. Audio and video links are going to be available at YouTube as well. And then at the course syllabus, two different things. We'll bypass the course speech schedule because everyone knows on which day they're going to speak. At the course itinerary area, let's focus on our final 6 class sessions. Today, day 1. Tomorrow, day 2. Then we transition from persuading on Monday, June 26th into wildcard week, which is Monday, wildcard speech research, Tuesday, wildcard speech topic selection, Wednesday, June 28th, wildcard speech day 1, Thursday, June 29, wildcard speech day 2. It will also be roughly at that time when I ask you to submit your self-evaluation speech critiques either to my SAU address or to my Yahoo address. The checklist is something that you should always examine before and during your presentations this week. It's just so helpful to reflect on content. Is your research thorough? Organization logical? Introduction relevant? Main supporting points apparent? Conclusion compelling? Fairness inclusive? Analysis thoughtful? And then for your delivery, is your extemporaneous quality continuous? Conversational style expressive? Eye contact full? articulation, enunciation, clear, vocal variety, varied, nonverbal cues, poised, persona, authentic. And then, of course, the visuals. Is your design uniform, font, color, shading, readable, spelling, grammar, accurate, text image balance, comparable, interactivity, recurrent, storytelling, dynamic, aesthetics, engaging? Take a hard look at your content, at your delivery, and your visuals to ensure that as much as possible, especially, I give you a lot of leeway when it comes to content, but especially with your delivery, that it is smooth, that it is authoritative, that you come across as confident on camera, and then there's no sloppiness with the visuals, including the full screen for your slides. All of that is incredibly important as we round the corner towards the concluding presentation next week. We have a number of persuasive speeches today. We have most of them on Loom, one of them on Microsoft PowerPoint with webcam. Abriana is going to be our first speaker of the day. She is going to be persuading us on why silent letters should be eliminated. I have a couple of other things to show you at the end of class, but we will begin the day with Abriana and her persuasive speech on get rid of the silent letters, as we have been doing, especially during the last couple of weeks. We will also take a look at the final 90 seconds of presentations today, including checking out with closed captioning up, if available, the ability of individuals to improve with the complete sentence structures of their presentations. You can see it looks like she's got her timer set up in reverse order from 5 minutes. So here we go.
Hi, I'm Abriana, and I will be doing my presentation on why we need to get rid of silent letters. Now, before I can convince you to get rid of them, I need to explain to you what they are. Now, auxiliary silent letters mostly deal with letter pairings, so extracentric letter pairings. They don't sound like either one of the letters that are combined, like the NG in king, or endocentric letter pairings, like the double T in letter, sound like the T. Now, dummy letters mostly deal with individual letters, like for example, an insert letter, the G in resign, you can't hear it, but the G in resignation, you can hear that. So for that, it's a pronunciation thing. That's why it's an insert silent letter. And then the empty letters don't sound like anything at all, like the K in me or the P in pterodactyl. Now, why is it like this? I can say it simply, which is time and snobby people in the 15th century, or I can say it a little more complex, which is literary masters in the 15th century decided that their readers needed to remember that the English language derived from Latin and Greek origins. So they put random letters in there to make sure that people knew that. And over time, the pronunciation of those words made the spellings make less and less sense. Now, you might not think that's a bad thing, but over 60%, which is 2/3 of all the words in the English language, have silent letters. Why is this a problem? Well, for people with dyslexia, such as myself, we spell words phonetically, the way we hear them. So when it comes to spelling words that have silent letters in them, like gnat, which is G-A-G-N-A-T, G-N-A-T, we don't hear the G, so we might just say N-A-T. So it makes no sense to have a silent letter if it makes no sound at all. Now, if it makes a sound, it can stay. But if it makes no sound at all, why is it there? Why are we still using spellings that are very old-timey? Why don't we bring our spelling, like we've done with so many things, into the modern era? I'll give you some examples. Almond, almond, salmon, salmon. Now remove the L from either one of these words, you still know what's going on. You still know what a salmon is. You still know what an almond is. You don't we don't say we don't say cow. That's a lot. That's a lot to put in your mouth. It just feels wrong. It feels wrong to say the silent letters, even though they're there, but that's not how they're pronounced. So why are the words that we say not spelt the way we say them? And this is why I feel like we should get rid of the silent letters. There's no use for them. And they make English a lot harder than it has to be for a lot of people. Thank you.
She runs a little bit short, but I'll talk about that later. I don't think that's going to have a major bearing on her grade. I think the one piece of constructive criticism I would give you, Abriana, is pay particular attention to your webcam and make certain that you're not recording in a reverse image. That will not have a bearing on your grade either. But if you look closely at the lettering of your t-shirt, it's backwards. So make certain that you always reverse the image and it is right side up, so to speak. Let's check out the final 90 seconds of her presentation. This is a topic that really has not been discussed in a long time. We've had these types of topics along the way, but it certainly is unique in terms of the silent letter approach. It doesn't look like at the bottom of the screen I have the option to go into closed captioning. So let's just listen closely to her concluding remarks. Not only are they persuasive, but pay particular attention, as I said before when we were looking at the SAU speech critique, in terms of delivery. Is she confident? Is she authentic? Is she personable? All of those things really do matter. Is she sincere in persuading us about the relevance of her topic?
So when it comes to spelling words that have silent letters in them, like gnat, which is G-A-G-N-A-T, G-N-A-T, we don't hear the G, so we might just say N-A-T. So it makes no sense to have a silent letter if it makes no sound at all. Now, if it makes a sound, it can stay. But if it makes no sound at all, why is it there? Why are we still using spellings that are very old-timey? Why don't we bring our spelling, like we've done with so many things, into the modern era? I'll give you some examples. Almond, almond, salmon, salmon. Now remove the L from either one of these words, you still know what's going on. You still know what a salmon is. You still know what an almond is. We don't say cow. That's a lot. That's a lot to put in your mouth. It just feels wrong. It feels wrong to say the silent letters, even though they're there, but that's not how they're pronounced. So why are the words that we say not spelt the way we say them? And this is why I feel like we should get rid of the silent letters. There's no use for them. And they make English a lot harder than it has to be for a lot of people. Thank you.
And then, of course, obviously, you can wrap it up by saying thank you, but let's examine her structure. First of all, she's got a slightly larger webcam in the upper right-hand portion of the screen, which is very attractive aesthetically. She has her timer counting backwards from 5, easy access. Then, for examples, with all of the silent letters with L, and that reinforces her thesis. Words with silent letters, her second graphic, and then the one right next to it with silent letters in English. All of this data she can talk about with as much or as little specificity as she wants, including personal examples, whether it be her or of her friends. And then as we move from back to front, pay particular attention now to her eye contact. Is she focused on her points? as we're looking at it can't be that bad, and then the bullet points with 60% of words and dyslexia, the silent W words. The English language is unique, guys. Remember, you can have two TO, two TOO, or the number two TWO. So she has the silent W words on her top graphic, and at the bottom, silent letters and words. This is very helpful for all of us to try to visualize why she thinks something like that is important to discuss. We've talked about this also. Where are her eyes? It's not unusual for any of us when we are truly trying to be extemporaneous in a public speaking setting to look skyward for guidance whenever we're thinking of something to say, but it shows me that you're being faithful to the concept of this course. You have all of this data on the screen with the bullet points, the visuals, the images, but you're still trying to be as extemporaneous as you can. The only thing I would say is she probably could have filled the time before with all of this data. There you see the movement of her head. Then we transition into backwards, why they are like this. Time, I'm guessing that means people in the 15th century. Again, what are they there with the bullet points? And whenever I see all of these sounds, it always reminds me, one of my favorite classes in elementary school were phonics, learning phonics. And that's what I see right here. Being a good speller sometimes can be a challenge. I guess for all of us, that's why there's spell check or Grammarly. Again, words with silent letters, and then over here on the right-hand side. Continuing to move backwards, look at her eye contact. Same thing here. And then we get to the beginning of the presentation with the title of the course. That can be moved closer together. These visuals and her webcam. There's a lot of good things that she does here. Now, one more time, let's just mute the audio, go to any point in the speech, and we've talked about this as well. Pay attention to her eye contact. She's not reading. She's being expressive like many of us. The webcam is out far enough with that wide shot. She is being naturally expressive with her hands. With the 3rd out of 4 speeches, with all of the recordings that you've made, many of which we never see, you're going to lose that nervousness, which for many of us is natural, whether it be behind a podium in a classroom that's interactive, or in this case, in front of a camera in a circumstance that's interactive. But she comes across quite well. I would say, again, 2 things. Turn your webcam around because the lettering is backwards, and then add a little bit more data to fill the time. But still in all, a nice job for a persuasive speech, because obviously you want to come across sounding persuasive, and a lot of that will dovetail off your research. Now we go to a PowerPoint with video, which is what Ms. Henderson has been providing all during the term. And here it is. Why schools shouldn't have dress codes. Remember, what I'm doing with all of your presentations is something that you should do on your own. How can you honestly improve in all of these areas, but being constructive along the way? Why schools shouldn't have dress codes. Our second persuasive speech, remember, for all of you when you're using Loom, but in this case, she's using a different platform. Slideshow, and then it will be slideshow from beginning, so we don't see this other than when you're preparing the slides. Always remember, when you go full screen, it'll look a little bit different, but we should never see this as we transition to our last presentations of the term. So we will go ahead and from beginning, we will start.
Hi, my name is Zari Henderson, and today I will be giving my persuasive speech for speech 1113, first summer 2023, 1 p.m. on why schools should have dress code. What's the purpose of a dress code? The expectation to have a dress code is to provide guidance to students as to appropriate attire for school and any school function, or to hinder any possibility of it affecting a child's learning. Oftentimes, schools create dress codes to the way they best feel for a student to learn, whether that's preventing certain clothes from being worn or telling people that certain hair colors couldn't be worn. Anything that they feel might affect a child learning, they will write it in the dress code that's not allowed. Here are examples of what schools might require students to wear, which requires that all students look the same with the way that they dress. And while this can be a really great thing for certain schools, this is also a negative thing for some people who might not want to look the same as everyone or might not be able to afford to look the same as everyone. And here you can just see different examples of school attires that they might wear from young children on up to high school students. Reality of a dress code. Dress code expectations are unreal. Some dress codes at some schools, I know for my school personally, require for a lot of people to not wear certain hair colors was in our dress code. You couldn't wear tights without wearing a t-shirt that covers your tights. Also prevented sagging, which brings me to another reality of dress codes that it embarrassed students and is also what some might argue to be sexist because schools enforce dress codes, but most dress codes are strictly against females. They can't wear crop tops. You cannot wear, like I said before, you cannot wear leggings without a shirt being longer. You cannot wear holes in our jeans that came up to a certain height. A lot of these were strictly written for females and prevented a lot of females from wearing certain things. Nothing was ever written really for boys, so that's how it can be considered a sexist. It doesn't distract students. A lot of educators say that what a child wears to school might distract others from learning, but the reality of it is no one's actually being distracted. When you are constantly pulling students out, that embarrasses them and they're also affecting their learning. So while you say that you want a dress code to be for learning and to be a way to keep kids from getting distracted. You're distracting them more by pulling them out of a class and saying something about what they're wearing rather than just letting them be in class. A lot of times, students don't even pay attention to what others have on because they are actually there to learn. But when you point out what they're wearing and you're pointing out the negative, that's when it becomes a distraction and it embarrasses students. Here, you would just see examples of clothing such as the sagging that I mentioned, the unwanted hair colors or unnatural hair colors that might distract other students per se. Here you can see a student just being bullied. I use this as my representation of maybe she's getting bullied because of the type of shirt she has on and she's gotten in trouble for. You can also see tights or athletic pants that females in general cannot wear, but nothing is ever said about what a male. Results of getting rid of a dress code would be ability to express yourself. A lot of times students just want to be able to express the way that they feel. They like their style. But if you hinder them and you try to make them wear the same thing as everybody else, that's not giving them the ability to express themselves day by day. It saves money for parents because they don't have to go out of their way to buy special clothing, which is really, really hard to do. Um, Dress codes are really high standards that a lot of people cannot meet once again simply because it takes a lot of work to try to go out and buy that particular clothing that you deem best fits for them, like wearing jeans that has holes at a certain length or no holes at all. That's really, really hard to do. Buying shirts that covers past your butt for tights for females, that's really hard to do because now you're wearing a really uncomfortable shirt that makes you feel even more embarrassed, which brings me to one of my other points in my previous slide. It's a lot of work to go through, and it takes more time out of a person's day, which makes them feel uncomfortable, embarrassed, makes them spend more money that we could be saving. You will also have a higher academic success. If students are getting pulled out less for what they have on, you will notice that their grades will be more improved. Once again, students are only distracted by what another child has on when it's pointed out. And that's what affects them from being able to learn because they're so now focused on that than what they were before. Thank you. This is the end of my speech. I just wanted to say that I personally feel like dress codes should not be such a heavily enforced thing. I feel like dress codes are unfair to a lot of people. It's unfair to certain body types. It's unfair to females, more importantly. And I just feel like dress codes really aren't as strict, really shouldn't have to be as strict as they are because no one's ever paying attention as much as you think you are. And when you don't focus on a small thing such as a dress code, you can focus on major things for a school that you can be working on. So I hope that my speech has given you a reason to look at having dress codes for schools a different way. Thank you.
Those of you who are with me live saw me with my headphones right up to my ear because her audio is a little on the low side. But what I have noticed here is when we watch the recording sessions later, it automatically gets bumped up a little bit. So that should not be an issue when you're watching this back, particularly on Class Collaborate Ultra. Because she's recording this on Microsoft PowerPoint, we can't break it down exactly the same way that we would on Loom. But as we always do, let's just go from back to front. A generic thank you slide, then looking at the results with the ability to express yourself, the money saved for parents, and then the relevance of higher success. This is something that has been discussed in my classes over the years, either on an informative or a persuasive basis, because the topic of dress codes can be quite controversial depending upon where you are and what type of school you attend and what the dress codes consist of, what you can and cannot wear. Perfect example here, she's got a variety of different images on the screen that she can talk about, the infamous sagging pants, hairstyles, different types of things that you can and cannot wear depending upon the school. And this is what I like when she's persuading us on the reality of a dress code. They're unreal. Some say sexist. It doesn't distract students and it embarrasses students. When I was in elementary school in central Illinois, girls could not wear something called a culotte. To this day, I'm not sure exactly what that is, but they had to wear dresses or skirts. So are they unreal and sexist? She makes a persuasive case that they are. Again, different types of images that she can spend as much or as little time on as she prefers. And then the purpose of a dress code, what's the expectation, appropriate attire, hinder possibility of child learning, certainly appropriate. And then a nice aesthetic to her title slide on why schools shouldn't have dress codes. Let's do this. Let's just go to her final slide and pick up her conclusion. Slideshow from current slide, and let's check it out. I don't know if I have to hit play or not. I guess I do. This is set up a little bit differently, so I'm going to change my approach and just watch the first minute or so.
Hi, my name is Zari Henderson, and today I will be giving my persuasive speech for speech 1113, first summer 2023, 1 p.m. on why schools should have dress code.
Now that was her first slide. How is she setting it up for the rest of her presentation? I think the way in which she has her design consistency and her storytelling set up really is encouraging her to remain extemporaneous all the way through and persuading us on why schools shouldn't have dress codes. The bottom of the screen with her webcam setup is pretty much the same throughout. All of that matters because you don't want anything to call attention to itself in terms of being unprofessional or sloppy. As you saw first with Aubriana and now with Miss Henderson, they've both done a really nice job of improvement, both with their content and with their delivery. And of course, the visuals take care of themselves. That brings us to our third presenter of the day, and this is Autumn. On the subject of why education should be free. As with all of these on Loom, pay particular attention to the element of overall delivery improvement. And let's check it out.
Hi, my name is Autumn Green, and today I am doing my persuasive speech on why I think all education should be free. The importance of an education. It helps people become better citizens, get better paid jobs, shows the difference between the good and bad in life. Also, getting an education can also help with life skills. The government should fund more towards education in the schools instead of funding towards unnecessary places. For example, at Magnolia, we have so much potential for so much things to go towards our schools, but instead our government decides to build these tobacco stores and vape shops that are really not necessary for our community. I feel like it's more necessary for our schools. It also helps eliminate the need for welfare. The importance of an education also provides stability for your life. I have a quote here from Nelson Mandela that says, education is the most powerful weapon, which you can use to change the world. If we all have our education and use it wisely, we can all change the world in some type of way. Why school lunches should be free? School lunches should be free because not all families can afford to pay for them, and every kid deserves a healthy meal. I used to have people at my school that would not eat their lunch at all, but had free lunch, and other students that had to pay for their lunch and were struggling to actually eat lunch at school. So I feel like everyone should have a chance to have free lunch, especially since we're there for 8 hours a day. The least the schools can do is give us a free meal throughout that day. Students have better academic performance, behavior, attendance, and psychosocial functioning. These benefits should be available to all, and there should be no such thing as lunch debt. Lunches provided by free lunch programs reduce obesity. Why school sports should be free. This is my personal opinion, but I think school sports should be free because most students who play sports are more focused and are less likely to get in trouble. Also, being active in school shouldn't be so expensive. I know when I was in school, I did cheer and it was like super duper expensive, but I just really just wanted to enjoy my time in school and just enjoy the sports that I play. I shouldn't be stressing or not even get my diploma held because I was struggling to pay for cheer. Also, it helps students develop their executive function and even provide a strong foundation to develop a growth mindset. I know you're probably thinking like, how would the schools pay for the sports, or how would the schools like just pay for education, period? And I don't have a great explanation for that, or I don't really would know the cost, but I just feel that the government and taxes should help education be paid for. Free college education, just like a regular education. College should be free because not all families can afford college. It is widely accepted that while college is increasingly necessary, it is also increasingly unaffordable. If more people could attend college for free, then the workforce will expand. Like most people won't be out on the street, most people won't be getting in trouble as much if they're focused on their education, and they're out in the world with real jobs and like stable jobs, it will make our community so much better. Also, free college will increase graduation rates and financial security. The benefits of a free education. You're most likely to have a better credit in the future. Students will be able to follow their passions and abilities, and also reduces debt. No one wants to be in their 30s paying off student loans from college. In conclusion, thank you for watching my speech on why all education should be free. I hope you understand we could see a change in the future for education. Thank you.
Think about what we have seen so far. First, from Aubriana. Second, from Ms. Henderson. Third, from Autumn. The improvement in their professionalism in addressing the camera, the self-confidence from all three is quite apparent. Now, let's pay attention, and she has closed captioning here. Let's go to the last 90 seconds. Let's check out how she is setting up her conclusion. Closed captioning is on. Something else to remember. All of us have crutch words rather than vocalics, Sometimes I will say now or and. Some people will say like. Let's pay attention to the last 90 seconds of her speech as she reinforces her persuasive thesis.
And taxes should help education be paid for. Free college education, just like a regular education. College should be free because not all families can afford college. It is widely accepted that while college is increasingly necessary, it is also increasingly unaffordable. If more people could attend college for free, then the workforce will expand. Like most people won't be out on the street, most people won't be getting in trouble as much if they're focused on their education and they're out in the world with real jobs and like stable jobs. It will make our community so much better. Also, free college will increase graduation rates and financial security. The benefits of a free education. You're most likely to have a better credit in the future. Students will be able to follow their passions and abilities, and also reduces debt. No one wants to be in their 30s paying off student loans from college. In conclusion, thank you for watching my speech on why all education should be free. I hope you understood my perspective on this topic, and we could see a change in the future for education. Thank you.
Okay, nice, concise conclusion. When you pay very close attention to her approach, looking at the camera, very confident, very poised. How does that come about? One, through practice, and two, you finally let your guard down, let your personality come out. With all of these recordings, we see that from all of you. You reach a level of comfort in front of the camera. Let's check out her slides. The consistency with the conclusion, also paying attention to her eye contact. Well lit. She gives herself enough room to move around here, and the timer in a place where it is easy for her to access. Webcam on the left-hand side, timer set up as a vertical bar. So we go from the conclusion to the benefits of a free education, take off the closed captioning, with an image and bullet points, allowing you to talk about it in a persuasive manner while not reading word for word. Free college education, she brings up a good point, even at a relatively inexpensive institution like SAU, still an outstanding college, but is relatively inexpensive as compared to what you might find in other states. There she continues on with the free college education, why school sports should be free. And she also at one point talks about school lunches. There was a time when you could only get school lunches. In many parts of the country now, you do have breakfasts and sometimes snacks available. Being active in school, as she says here in her second bullet point, shouldn't be so expensive. There, she gives herself enough room in the webcam to move in and out. I like the way that Autumn is being expressive. As we transition back into school lunches, should be free. Lots of carrots and salad and apple and water. When I was in school, usually it was chocolate milk or regular milk. There was no water available. But it discusses, among other things, obesity, behavior, performance, psychosocial functioning. And then moving back to the importance of an education. And we've had presentations like this before. Usually, the more educated you are, not only the more upward mobility you're going to have in terms of a job, but it does have an impact on how much money you're going to make over the course of your career. Usually, the higher degree that you have, it's going to be more money in your pocket. She talks about stability, eye contact still consistent, and then we get to the beginning of her speech. The only thing I would say here, Autumn, is find one place, leave your webcam there. I would just go ahead and leave it in this part of the screen. The graphics don't call attention to themselves. The design consistency is all the way through. With all of you, there are going to be some instances of vocalics, drop Gs, grammar, but for the most part, we still continue to see a lot of overall improvement. Now that brings us to our fourth persuasive presentation of the day. This is going to be from Jordan, Reasons Why Knowing About Social Anxiety is Important. If I'm in the classroom teaching this course, it is very obvious that some people will have social anxiety getting in front of people. They have a body language which is basically like this. It's very tough for them to establish and maintain eye contact, where in this course, one of the advantages of reducing social anxiety with an online public speaking course, in a classroom setting, you get up in front of students and you've got one opportunity to make a positive impression. Here, because we do so many interactivities online and interactions in the same way, you're going to be able to, with all of those recordings that we never see, try to figure out how you can improve as a communicator. And by nature, just with all of that practice, it's going to help you with any type of conversation that you have in person with people. Because now you know what your overall persona is. You know what you look like. You know what you sound like. You know what's going to encourage you to remain extemporaneous, likable, conversational. So I appreciate the work that you put into this course, because it becomes quite apparent that the more that you speak in an online circumstance, it's going to help reduce that social anxiety when you're talking to someone in person. Here is Jordan's presentation, Reasons Why Knowing About Social Anxiety is Important. And here we go.
Hello, I'm Jordan Sims, and today I'll be giving you reasons why it is important to know about social anxiety. Social anxiety is a chronic mental health condition in which social interactions can cause irrational fear. For people with social anxiety disorder, everyday social interactions can cause irrational anxiety, fear, self-consciousness, and embarrassment. Social anxiety disorder and nervousness are two different things. There are differences. Symptoms may include excessive fear of situations in which you may be judged, worry about embarrassment or humiliation, or concern about offending someone. This can affect relationships, daily routines, and work and school. You can become nervous when trying out for a role in a play or meeting your spouse's parents for the first time, but that's not necessarily a sign of social anxiety disorder. And occurrences like that is very normal, especially when you're meeting someone for the first time and it's an unknown thing, it's an unknown outcoming to it, whether it's a play in a role or how the parents may react to you. That's a normal thing to feel. With social anxiety disorder, it is a social phobia. Everyday interactions cause significant anxiety, self-consciousness, and embarrassment. Social anxiety versus being shy. Being shy and having discomfort in certain situations is not exactly social anxiety disorder, it's a normal thing. Some symptoms and signs of social anxiety may include fear of situations in which you might be judged negatively, worrying about embarrassing or humiliating yourself. Some symptoms include intense fear of interacting or talking with strangers, avoidance of situations where you might be the center of attention, analysis of your performance, and identification of flaws, your interaction after the social situation. You always overanalyze everything that you've done in the past. You always think about it, okay, I could have done this better. I should have did this, or I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have acted that way. Maybe they think I came off as rude. An intense fear or anxiety during social situations also is a symptom. Anxiety and anticipation and feared activity or event is another symptom. Some physical symptoms include blushing, fast heartbeat, trembling, sweating, upset stomach or nausea, trouble catching your breath, dizziness or lightheadedness, feeling that your mind has gone blank, or muscle tension. Biological and environmental factors are also something to think about when it comes to social anxiety disorder. It can be in your family history and you don't even know it because it's been untreated or never really been talked about in your family. It can be because of negative situations that you went through as a child and anything that may have affected you, such as conflict or trauma or anything else that is associated with the disorder. Temperament also with children who are shy or timid. You can also look at that as a sign, but it's not necessarily one that you want to harp on because they are at greater risk with children like that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they will have this disorder when they get older. Some more biological factors include new social or work demands can cause social anxiety disorder or more anxiety. Having an experience or condition that draws attention also. Some coping tips include getting help as early as possible. Therapy is a great tool to use. Journaling, setting priorities in your life, and avoiding unhealthy substance use is another thing because honestly, the substances only make situations worse. It may be a good temporary fix, but in the long run, it's worse on your health. Also, untreated anxiety disorder can control your life. Complications if untreated. You can have low self-esteem, trouble being assertive, negative self-talk, hypersensitivity to criticism, poor social skills, isolation, and difficult social relationships, low academic and employment achievement, substance abuse, suicide, or suicide attempts. It is best that when you feel that you need help, you reach out. Don't be ashamed, do not be afraid, because untreated can cause more harm in the long run than just going ahead and doing what you need to do. That is the end of my presentation. I hope that you gained some reasons to know more about social anxiety, and I hope that it was helpful. Thank you.
I really like that topic because it is something that all of us who have particularly been college students can identify with. Being away from home for the first time, all of these issues come up, and it's complicated more in a social media era that I didn't have to endure because now there's so many different pressures on you, and that can potentially affect the ability to know about what social anxiety is. And that's why, if you ever have any issues, it's important to talk to a counselor. Jordan's audio, for some reason, when we are recording live on Class Collaborate Ultra, isn't all that loud. However, I've noticed that when I play the recordings back, it's okay. I was very tempted early on to put on the closed captioning to be safe, but I think it's going to be all right. Let's go to the final 90 seconds. And with the closed captioning on, check out his concluding remarks, speaking in complete sentences, checking again his eye contact, his design consistency, his ability to take text and images to reinforce the concept of being aware of social anxiety.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that they will have this disorder when they get older. Some more biological factors include new social or work demands can cause social anxiety disorder or more anxiety. Having an experience or condition that draws attention also. Some coping tips include getting help as early as possible. Therapy is a great tool to use. Journaling, setting priorities in your life, and avoiding unhealthy substance use is another thing, because honestly, the substances only make situations worse. It may be a good temporary fix, but in the long run, it's worse on your health. Also, untreated anxiety disorder can control your life. Complications if untreated. You can have low self-esteem, trouble being assertive, negative self-talk, hypersensitivity to criticism, poor social skills, isolation, and difficult social relationships. Low academic and employment achievement, substance abuse, suicide, or suicide attempts. It is best that when you feel that you need help, you reach out. Don't be ashamed, do not be afraid, because untreated can cause more harm in the long run than just going ahead and doing what you need to do. That is the end of my presentation. I hope that you gained some reasons to know more about social anxiety, and I hope that it was helpful. Thank you.
Jordan, I want you to do something for me as you transition to your wildcard speech next week. Please double check the audio level on your computer. I don't know if you're recording off a laptop or on a desktop, but double check your audio, especially when you are recording, to make certain that it's a little bit louder. And the other part of it is this: you have a naturally softer voice, which is fine, but I would make an effort for the wildcard presentation to increasingly add to the volume of your voice so we don't necessarily have to strain to hear you. The closed captioning helps. You're speaking in a complete sentence structure, but that would be great if you can double check that for me in the next week, especially the recording level on your webcam. Let's check out his design consistency. The webcam itself is set up fine. Occasionally, guys, there's just not a lot we can do with adding more light, because if you're in your dorm room or you're someplace else, you're pretty much captive to what little or what amount of light is going to be in a room. So that's not a major thing. Nice tight shot all the way through, very expressive, likable persona. Complications, if untreated, such as the low self-esteem or the trouble being assertive. All of those elements are why all institutions of higher education now are more proactive than ever in helping students out if they have any kinds of issues, because you always are going to have a student or students who keep all of this bottled in, and maybe they don't feel comfortable opening up to others, but those complications, if untreated, are real. So these bullet points he can talk about with as much or as little depth that he feels is appropriate for the topic. The coping tips: always the design consistency with the font style and size for the headlines and for the bullet points, such as journaling, keeping track of your personal life and mental health, setting priorities in your life, more carefully managing your time and energy. And if you're a college student, managing your time is important. Not only is it social media time, but most of you are going to be working as well. And getting help early for therapy. That is such an important point that he brings up. There is nothing wrong with asking for help. That is not abnormal. That is normal. Biological and environmental factors, family history, negative experiences. Maybe you have a roommate that you don't get along with. children who experience teasing, bullying, rejection, all of that comes into play, especially for children who are timid, withdrawn, or shy. And then we transition back, still on the same slide, looking at his eye contact. Same thing here. Moving back to the symptoms with those 9 boxes, such as avoidance of situations where you might be the center of attention, expectation of the worst possible consequences from a negative experience during a social situation, or intense fear of interacting or talking with strangers. And you can tell that early on. Some people just are shy by nature. They're not necessarily aloof or negative. They're just a little bit withdrawn for one reason or another. And again, to them, that's natural. Then we transition back to the differences, including this can affect relationships, daily routines, work, and school, and you can become nervous when trying out for a role in a play or when meeting your spouse's parents for the first time. It's the same thing with this class. Before you hit enter on your email, you know that everyone is going to see your speech. You know that I am going to play it in real time, in full, in class, and critique it. But again, my critiques will always be couched in a positive way. I don't think, as you've heard me say before, gang, I don't think you learn from negative commentary. Can you improve in content and delivery and visuals? Absolutely. But it comes through practice, and it comes through me not saying that's awful. Here's another way to look at it, because we're all sensitive. Eye contact still relatively full. Then we get back to the introduction with social anxiety being a chronic mental health condition. And again, he mentions appropriately in the second bullet point, social anxiety disorder and nervousness are 2 different things, and they really are. Then we get back to his title slide eventually. He doesn't stay on it very long, but everything is pretty well done in terms of the overall research. Let's go ahead, mute the audio, and just play a little bit of this. Watch his eye contact. As we've seen with our other speakers today, do you see, honestly, improvement? Absolutely. Is it going to be perfect? Nothing ever is. But if you continue to strive for perfection without guaranteeing anything, the grades, hopefully, are going to take care of themselves. So when we look at our persuasive speakers for today, how have they transitioned in terms of improving from a demonstrative speech to an informative speech to a persuasive speech? And then, of course, next week with the wild card, you can talk about whatever you want. And that is Jordan. We had a student at the beginning of the semester who sent me a number of emails to my SAU address indicating that she was having, as we now know over the past 24 hours, internet issues. We saw her informative speech at the class earlier in the week, but I wanted to, for the record, have everyone see her demonstrative speech. This is Trinity. I wanted to make certain that this was chronicled for the record. She is talking about how to make different types of sandwiches. It's on Loom, and after we get through this, I'm going to show you a couple of speeches that I wasn't able to yesterday as more examples of persuading that were cut off by our internet adventure. So this is Trinity's demonstrative speech on how to make a sandwich, and here it is.
My name is Trinity Roy. Today I will be taking you through how to make different types of sandwiches. As you see on the screen, how to make a sandwich by me. Okay, so what is a sandwich? It's basically an item of food that consists of 2 pieces of bread with meat, cheese, and other fillings between them. So as you see in the picture below right here,
It has bread, lettuce, tomatoes, I'm going to say ham, and cheese. This is quite frankly what a lot of people eat. The majority of people, I believe, eat this. But we're going to go into just the history of a sandwich, basically. In 1762, John Montagu, I hope I said that correctly, the fourth Earl of Sandwiches, invented the meal that changed dining forever. He was playing cards and didn't want to leave the gaming table. He didn't want to leave the gaming table because the sandwich that he put together with the bread, ham, and cheese, I believe, was so tasty and good to his taste buds and to his liking. Okay, so what is a grilled cheese sandwich? A grilled cheese sandwich is a sandwich that contains bread and cheese, and the cheese will be melted onto the bread. Number one, you will get you two slices of bread. Two, get you, I say 2 to 3 slices of cheese instead of just one, but it's really to your liking of how much cheese you want and how you really just like your grilled cheese. You'll spread the butter on one side of each, on each side. Then you'll put it in a pan and get it buttered up, and it's really gonna make it kind of like it'll give it a crunch, I believe. Put the cheese on top of the bread. Put the piece of the bread on top of the cheese, butter side up, and you'll leave it on there to your liking. And then you'll take it off, and it'll be ready to eat. What is a grilled cheese sandwich? It's a sandwich that contains a juicy grilled chicken that is served with a bun with tomatoes, lettuce, mayo, and pickles. Basically, that's what you see nowadays is a chicken sandwich being like that. You can alter it to how it is in the picture, but basically, a grilled chicken sandwich will have a bun, whatever type of bun you personally like. You can put on there grilled chicken, tomatoes, lettuce and tomatoes with the other bun on the bottom. Okay, ham sandwich. A ham sandwich contains bread, cheese, lettuce, and tomatoes. Like the picture below, the bread, the ham, the cheese, the tomatoes, and the lettuce is basically what's on every sandwich. I want to believe nowadays it's a typical sandwich. A Nutella sandwich. Uh, it's a sandwich with Nutella, breads, and bananas. Some people eat their sandwich with bread, banana, with Nutella, bread, and bananas. Some people put strawberries on it. I've seen, some put strawberries on it, peaches. It's really just whatever to your liking and to what you really like. Some people just do the bread and the Nutella together, which is totally fine. What is a roast beef sandwich? It's a sandwich that contains a bread bun with roast beef, cheese, tomatoes, and onions. Onions isn't a typical ingredient in it, but it's one of the ones that some like but don't like. And a little pepper on the side. Some people like to bite into the sandwich and eat that with it. A egg sandwich contains toasted bread with sausage, egg, cheese, and it's basically you put it all together and it's a sandwich. But I will say the bun the bun will have to be toasted. The cheese will have to be melted. So basically you'll cook everything separately and put it together. Last but not least, a club sandwich. A club sandwich is a sandwich that comes with bread, tomatoes, cheese, lettuce, turkey, and ham. And it also always, not always, but all the one that I have seen has toothpicks in it, and you know, it always looks. It's like a smaller, fancy version of a sandwich. And thank you for listening. That's all for today.
And there you go. Her audio is similar to Jordan's in the respect that it's a little hard to hear during our original recording session. I do appreciate the fact that she's got so many tasty visuals available for individuals to examine. Let's go ahead, leave the closed captioning on, and double check her complete sentenceability in the last 90 seconds.
It's a sandwich that contains a bread bun with roast beef, cheese, tomatoes, and onions. Onions isn't a typical ingredient in it, but it's one of the ones that some like but don't like. And a little pepper on the side. You know, some people like to bite into the sandwich and eat that with it. An egg sandwich contains toasted bread with sausage, egg, cheese, and it's basically you put it all together and it's a sandwich. But I will say the bun will have to be toasted. The cheese will have to be melted. So basically you'll cook everything separately and put it together. Last but not least, a club sandwich. A club sandwich is a sandwich that comes with bread, tomatoes, cheese, lettuce, turkey, and ham. And it also always, not always, but all the one that I have seen has toothpicks in it, and you know it always looks. It's like a smaller, fancy version of a sandwich. And thank you for listening. That's all for today.
And that's her conclusion. Keep in mind, Trinity, I've talked about this before, but because you are having some internet issues of your own, you may not have been able to see me talk about this in previous course videos, that as you saw with Ms. Henderson, and I'll put hers on the screen to remind all of you, that when you are doing something in a PowerPoint slideshow or a Google Docs slideshow, we never want to see the slides on the left-hand side. So we will put one of our earlier persuasive speeches on the screen and show you again how you can do this. Why schools shouldn't have dress codes. So hers is set up basically the same way as the sandwich speech. Just always remember, we should never see these when you are actually delivering. We should never see these. Slideshow from beginning, and we'll pick up our audio. Watch and listen.
Hi, my name is Zari Henderson, and today I will be giving my persuasive speech for speech 1113, first summer 2023, 1 p.m. on why schools should have dress code. What's the purpose of a dress code? The expectation.
Then, whenever I go back to hitting escape, we'll see all of the slides on the screen. So those of you who are in that position, going back to the sandwich speech, just remember, it's something to keep in mind. Slideshow from beginning. Any of the editor suggestions in terms of spelling, those will be eliminated. Always full screen. Taking off the closed captioning and checking from back to front the quality of all of her slides, from the club sandwich, checking out her in the bottom left-hand portion of the screen as well, to the egg sandwich, attractive photos. So no matter what time of day you're watching this course video, she is being faithful to the concept of demonstrating sandwiches that you might like to have. If you're a fan of Nutella, there you go. Lots of bananas and lots of Nutella. College students who live on campus, sandwiches are one of the 4 main food groups or part of the food pyramid. There's a ham sandwich, the grilled chicken, the grilled cheese, and then just continuing to move back. The history of the sandwich from the Earl of Sandwich in the 18th century. Now let's stop right here, mute her audio, look at her eyes, bottom left-hand portion of the screen, and check out her ability for her first graded speech to try to really be extemporaneous. Your personalities are going to really start to show as you transition from informing to persuading, as many of you have seen. I would say to her, as I also did with Jordan, go ahead and open your mouth and project, not like me being intentionally loud, but project so it's easy to pick up your audio on your webcam. And she does a pretty good job of eye contact. My piece of constructive criticism would be to tighten this up a little bit. Now let's turn on the closed captioning with the audio down to, as we saw earlier in the last 90 seconds with the audio up, examine her ability to speak in complete sentences. And she's doing a nice job. She is throwing in a couple of okays as what I would say a verbal vocalic or something with grammar, like, okay, kinda, wanna. Watching these on your own, you'll learn how to be much smoother in trying to iron out those types of issues. We will pause it there. We will come back to me. I told you at the outset that we were cut off during yesterday's class session, roughly about at the 63-minute mark. We had started off with a number of YouTube presentations, which I usually show during the second day, usually when we are going through the element of topic selection. But there were a couple that I wanted to show you for the record that were from first summer 2021 and first summer 2022 persuasive speeches from students who had exactly as much time as you to prepare. Our first of those two is from the first summer of 2021. Someone that you've seen before. This is Essence. I had planned on showing this to you yesterday. It is a persuasive topic on take a road trip, do not fly. This is Essence Thomas.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Essence, and today I will be doing my persuasive speech on why you should road trip instead of flying. The reason why you should road trip instead of flying is 1, because it's more affordable, 2, it's more flexible, 3, you can build your own adventure, and 4, you can bring what you want. The first point is road trips are more affordable. Road trips are more affordable because the flying cost, average cost of a flying ticket costs $359. We have baggage fees up to $35, and throughout your flight you will want drinks or a meal or a snack. The meal is up to $10.99, and the snacks cost $3 and up. When driving, all you have to worry about is gas, which it depends on the vehicle and how far you're going. Food would average up to $50 because of the different stops you have to make, and you may run into a toll fee. It depends on what state you're entering. This is a picture of a plane meal, and this is a moment you're missing with your family, just stopping to eat a fast food and grab a bite. 2, road trips are more flexible. When you're flying, you have to deal with uncomfortable seating, noise disruption, and some may even have a fear of heights. But when you're driving, you have comfortable seats. You can adjust the temperature to your liking. You can adjust the radio and your music selection, and you can have bathroom breaks anytime. 3, you can build your own adventure. You can build your own adventure. Although flying is beautiful and you can take great pictures and you see a great view, when driving, you can stop for souvenirs. You can have TikToks in every state. You can stop to see family, stop for amusement parks, bonding with family, music jam sessions, just anything to make it great. And you can even stop for the city scenery. You can bring anything you want when you drive. You won't have to worry about a limit with baggage because you can bring anything you want. You can bring who you want, leave when you want, and you don't have to worry about being at the airport and risking getting caught in traffic because you have to be there a certain time and you can't use your cell phones on the plane. This quote says, "It's not the destination, it's the journey," by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And it's basically saying, it's not how quick you get there, it's the journey and the fun memories you have with the time being. And 73% have voted they would rather road trip than fly. Another big problem is within COVID-19 and the pandemic, you are risking being surrounded by hundreds of people in airports where most don't even wear their mask or not vaccinated. You have to deal with uncomfortable seating during a flight and close seating where you may be this close to someone sitting next to you, traffic, and you even have to deal with flight delays. I want to thank you all for watching. And here's a video of me and my family's road trips. And as you can see within our road trips, we have a lot of fun. It's not about how long it takes to get to your destination. It's about the fun memories in between that you have and the bonding you get to have with your family, even if it's just stopping for a TikTok or discussing family things or planning out an agenda for when you get there. And it's just about how much fun you have. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I really hope you consider spending time with your family through driving and road trips instead of flying and just taking a quick trip there. Yes, flying is quick and it is a great scenery, but you would have more fun with your family, your friends, or whoever you desire to take with you on vacation by just simply being together in a car to get to your destination. So I really hope you consider taking a road trip with your family and friends, and make sure you take lots of pictures and videos and really enjoy the moment, because one day those moments will become memories. So thank you all for watching.
You can tell that Essence truly is an extemporaneous speaker. She has a tendency, when she is thinking of something to say and not necessarily looking at her screen, watch her eyes. She's going to look up. Her timer is moving in reverse order, so we'll go exactly to the 1 minute and 30-second mark and pick it up in progress from the last 90 seconds, which not only has her concluding remarks, but if appropriate, if you want to add video, that's fine. Watch her eyes when she is thinking of something to say. Oftentimes, she'll look straight up and sometimes move her head. Closed captioning on as well.
And as you can see within our road trips, we have a lot of fun. It's not about how long it takes to get to your destination. It's about the fun memories in between that you have and the bonding you get to have with your family, even if it's just stopping for a TikTok or discussing family things or planning out an agenda for when you get there. And it's just about how much fun you have. So I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I really hope you consider spending time with your family through driving and road trips instead of flying and just taking a quick trip there. Yes, flying is quick and it is a great scenery, but you would have more fun with your family, your friends, or whoever you desire to take with you on vacation by
just simply being together in a car to get to your destination. So I really hope you consider taking a road trip with your family and friends, and make sure you take lots of pictures and videos and really enjoy the moment, because one day those moments will become memories. So thank you all for watching.
As I had indicated before I started to play the persuasive speech from Essence, I really wanted to put up a first summer 2021 video yesterday before we got cut off, and a first summer 22 persuasive video. With those 19 class sessions, all of you guys are working on the exact same schedule, whether it's day one or day two. The only piece of constructive criticism I would give to Essence after watching this is try to make certain when you're thinking of something to say, not necessarily to be as pronounced in looking straight up, and become aware of it and try to focus more when you're thinking of something to say. A little bit off to the side, as we saw with one of our earlier speakers for day one today, or just focus and look directly into the camera. That's most of the time what I am doing in this class, looking directly into the camera and maybe a little bit slightly off for the sake of discussing a particular element of a speech. Her design consistency from back to front with the video, with COVID-19, traveling and the bullet points, with the Emerson quote and the image, you can build your own adventure, take as much time with flying or driving or the generic images as you like. Road trips are more affordable. Putting the costs up is really important, especially if you're a college student. You're living from paycheck to paycheck or whenever mom and dad are sending you money. So something like this, especially around spring break or fall break, comes in really handy, whether you're flying or whether you're driving, and oftentimes you're dependent on the cost of gas. Eye contact, pretty consistent here, and those are her table of contents with those particular items and the road trip image. Let's move over just a little bit. And there is her title slide. This is obscured, but it's 2 years ago, and she did well in the course, so I'm not going to give her too much grief. But all in all, from 2 years ago, this week, a really nice overall effort. Which brings us to our final persuasive speech of the day, recorded exactly at this time last year. It's a controversial topic for some if you are a conspiracy theorist. This is Scott Graves, and he does a really good job on why the moon landing couldn't be faked. One of the challenges that we always have with conspiracy theorists is there's always another rabbit hole to go down. And he rebuts those in a very persuasive fashion, first and foremost based on evidence. And here is Scott from first summer 2022, why his persuasive speech is titled, Why the Moon Landing Couldn't Be Faked.
Hello, I'm Scott Graves, and today I'm going to convince you, without a doubt, why the moon landing couldn't have been faked. I have heard many people in my life that I thought were very rational who claim that the moon landing itself was fake. This is just not something that I can believe. To get some background on the moon landing, you must first understand the space race. After the end of World War II, the Soviets and the Americans did not like each other very much, and they went into the Cold War arms race. However, alongside the arms race, there was the space race, which roughly lasted from 1955 to 1975, a rough 20 years. The goal of the space race, the finish line, was to put a man on the moon. Now, why do people think that the moon landing was fake? Many people said that the US just wanted to win the space race against the Soviets, get a one-up on them. Other people claim that the technology wasn't advanced enough at the time to do so. And a lot of people fall back and claim that the photos and videos taken on the moon were actually faked. To start off with, the photos of the moon and the videos would be impossible to recreate. Now, to start off with, we'll talk about the brightness and the long parallel shadows. This happens because the light source itself is the sun, which is roughly 93 million miles away from the moon. This causes the long parallel shadows on the ground. To get these shadows recreated in a studio, you couldn't do it with simple studio lights. The shadows would diverge. The only way you would be able to make those same style of shadows was with a wall of so many laser lights stuck together that they would look like pixels on a TV screen. You would need millions of these laser lights, which were not very easy to come by, especially because of the fact that the commercially available laser lights were all red. This means that if they would have tried to recreate it, it would have looked like a bad imitation of Mars, give or take. So many people fall back on the fact that the moon landing photos would have had to been digitally recreated. And yeah, while today we have the technology to have digitally recreated the moon landing photos, in 1969 they had none of that. They didn't have advanced computer graphics like we have today because those were roughly 40 years away from being made. They didn't get made almost into the mid-2000s. So, if these moon landing photos were faked, let's say in a scenario that they were, how many people would have had to keep quiet about this secret? To start off with, you would have over 400,000 NASA employees at the time, which, you know, I've tried to keep a secret quite a few times between 5 people, and that's not easy. There were independent scientists from Australia, Spain, and England who all said that they caught the broadcast coming from space. And most importantly, our rivals in the space race, the Soviets. It's been 50 years since we landed on the moon, and never once did they claim that we faked it, which, you know, they'd be the first people to claim that. So a lot of people would fall back on, well, there's no tangible proof that we landed on the moon. Actually, there is. When the astronauts went up to the moon, they left a set of retroreflectors in certain positions around their landing point. What retroreflectors are what scientists use to measure the distance from the Earth to the moon and at different points during its rotation and revolution around the Earth. They shine a laser at these retroreflectors, and the laser reflects back to them. Not only that, but if you go and look through a high-powered telescope, you can actually see the American flag that was planted on the surface of the moon. If you zoomed in far enough, though, it wouldn't be red, white, and blue anymore because the sun would have bleached the flag to be completely white, as there's no atmosphere on the moon. So, for the moon landing to have been faked, they would have had to develop computer graphics 40 years ahead of time. They would have had to convince multiple governments to lie on the US's behalf and contain those secrets for 50 years, and also somehow get retroreflectors and a flag onto the moon without actually going there. At that point, it'd just be easier to put a man on the moon. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope I convinced you that the moon landing was indeed real.
Scott really does an excellent job of rebutting all of the critics, the non-scientific critics. Going back to the last 90 seconds with closed captioning up, checking out his complete sentence structure. He really does a nice job.
Of retroreflectors in certain positions around their landing point. What retroreflectors are what scientists use to measure the distance from the Earth to the Moon and at different points during its rotation and revolution around the Earth. They shine a laser at these retroreflectors, and the laser reflects back to them. Not only that, but if you go and look through a high-powered telescope, you can actually see the American flag that was planted on the surface of the moon. If you zoomed in far enough, though, it wouldn't be red, white, and blue anymore because the sun would have bleached the flag to be completely white, as there's no atmosphere on the moon. So, for the moon landing to have been faked, they would have had to develop computer graphics 4 years ahead of time. They would have had to convince multiple governments to lie on the US's behalf and contain those secrets for 50 years, and also somehow get retroreflectors and a flag onto the moon without actually going there. At that point, it'd just be easier to put a man on the moon. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope I convinced you that the moon landing was indeed real.
I really felt it was important at the end of class today to add on First Summer 2021 and First Summer 2022 Persuasive Speeches, because these are the most recent courses that I have taught. Primarily, I'm only teaching the basic speech course during the summer, and as you can see, first of all with Essence from 2021, and then last year with Scott, how they have improved from week to week to week with the wild card yet to go. Taking off the closed captioning, taking a good look at all of his visuals, paying attention to his webcam. The only thing I would be nitpicky about here is ideally having some better light. You can always tell when someone has practiced, guys, primarily just from the fact that they are very crisp and cogent in their respective analyses, and Scott does that. He doesn't break stride all the way through and provides, among other things, the tangible proof. How many people would have to keep quiet? 400,000 NASA employees, the possibility of digital recreation. There was no such thing in 1969. Remember, that's in the era where they're using different types of analog items to get to the moon. They're using slide rules. What you have with a regular calculator today or smartphone is by far superior to the technology in 1969 that got us to the moon. The lighting of the photos is impossible to recreate. Remember, near the end, he was talking about how the flag today would actually be bleached out because of the sun. Transitioning back, eye contact always consistent. Why do people think the landing was fake? With the bullet points. And then talking about the space race and how that was really important up until the 1970s when it transitioned eventually into the space shuttle program under Presidents Carter and Reagan. Title slide, why the moon landing couldn't be faked. Very clear, very understandable, thoughtful research, and something that makes you think, again, that really takes the conspiracy theorists to task. Or something like that. Can you say theorist? Before we wrap things up for the day, a reminder that tomorrow is day 2 of Persuasive Speeches. We'll return one more time to Blackboard. At the student preview mode, we go to the course syllabus, and our itinerary we already discussed. The point allocation for everything, especially the self-evaluation speech critique we talked about yesterday. You can always join us live. The checklist is something that we talked about earlier today, but our course speech schedule is where I'm going to go first. If anybody gets behind, please make certain that if you still have an informative speech to give me, I need it ASAP because I want to include it in a course recording. If you've got an internet issue, and I'm well aware that that can happen, because it obviously is going to be an issue, not only for students, but occasionally for the instructor. Let me know, but don't fall behind. I don't want 4 speeches given to me on the last day of class because I won't accept them. So please make certain you are staying relatively consistent in getting projects to me on time. Then, of course, also in the area of the syllabus, you can access your grades, you can do other kinds of things. I'm going to get out of the student preview mode for just a moment and go down. This is set up a little bit differently, so I'll just leave it there for the time being because we're going to have to access the course videos in just a moment, but I'll be here live tomorrow if you need any additional information or questions answered. I am always here between the window of 1 to 3 p.m., even though on occasion I will not start right at 1 o'clock because some of you will be joining us late and sometimes I go after 3 o'clock. We got off to a good start today with day 1 of persuasive speeches, looking realistically at the improvement that you make as a speaker, that symbiotic relationship between you and the camera, and how you can take your text and images and research to create a very positive and persuasive presentation. We will continue tomorrow with day 2 of persuasive speeches. Good luck in your respective preparation processes. As for SPCH 1113, Introduction to Public Speaking for the first summer session of 2023, that concludes the recording session for today.